In the secluded hollow of Ord, West Virginia, the Whitaker family had lived for generations amid the rolling Appalachian hills. Betty, Larry, Timmy, Ray, Lorraine, and their relatives formed a close-knit group whose lives reflected decades of isolation, health challenges, and quiet endurance. For 70 years, they maintained a fragile peace in their modest home, navigating daily realities shaped by generational circumstances. Their world remained largely private until documentary filmmaker Mark Leiter brought their story to a global audience through the Soft White Underbelly series. These raw, unflinching portraits revealed their struggles and humanity, stirring widespread compassion. Viewers responded with donations aimed at improving housing, medical care, and basic living conditions. This outpouring of support marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that would soon spiral into controversy and division. Patrick Roark, a local man with connections to the area, and Eric Carroll, arriving from Georgia, stepped forward as content creators and self-proclaimed advocates. They established official Whitaker family pages across major platforms including YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Their videos captured everyday moments, conversations, light interactions, and glimpses into the family's routines. Patrick's energetic style, often featuring playful exchanges with Timmy, resonated with audiences, driving rapid growth in viewership. What began as documentation quickly evolved into a monetized enterprise. A formal contract outlined a three-way revenue split: 1/3 allocated to the Whitaker family, 1/3 to Patrick, and 1/3 to Eric. The agreement promised transparency, regular disbursements, and the ultimate goal of securing a better home for the family. Early success seemed promising. Ad revenue from YouTube climbed steadily, supplemented by direct fan donations through Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and other channels. Merchandise and gifts arrived in abundance. Patrick and Eric positioned themselves as bridges between the public's generosity and the family's needs. Videos portrayed hope and progress, with appeals that encouraged continued support. For a brief period, the collaboration appeared to deliver on its potential, shining a brighter light on the Whitakers while generating substantial funds, reportedly tens of thousands of dollars within months. Yet behind the public facade, tensions escalated rapidly. By mid-September, private text messages between Patrick and Eric exposed deep fractures in their partnership. These leaked communications, later shared with independent storytellers and circulated widely, revealed Patrick's growing frustration and urgent demands for accountability. In one pointed message, Patrick warned Eric, "You better hope you have the money for the Whitaker page. All the platforms plus what money you already have of the Whitakers. Contract says 1/3 split 3 ways. I'll make sure your assets get froze, you piece of shit." The messages continued without recorded replies from Eric, intensifying Patrick's anger. Days later, on or around September 17th, Patrick expanded his accusations. "You think that you got one over on me? You and your little buddy Dwayne and his wife Brandy. You tried to ruin my character so the eyes of the public wouldn't see how crooked and fraudulent you were. You may have your little bit of followers in your hand right now, but the truth will come out. I promise." He went further, addressing alleged manipulation. "Secondly, you need not be giving my email address out to people from which you are getting Venmo and then asking for money back that they sent to you. You had a plan devised to make me out to be a villain. But it's okay. The truth does come out and it will come out. Thanks for getting the Whitaker family separated for your financial gain. People that spent 70 years in peace down this holler and you walk in here like you have empathy only to pad your pockets. And not only that, but people now believe that I'm the one that took from the Whitakers. You're a coward piece of shit." Patrick demanded immediate action. "Make sure the Whitakers get their money from all those platforms this month. Every dime that you owe them and every dime you owe me, because I'm giving them both 1/3 that are owed, and I'll make sure they have a home after you promise them your Amish buddies." The text grew more specific regarding finances and control. Patrick insisted Eric remove himself from the main Whitaker page, citing Eric's dominance over YouTube and other platforms. He referenced visible earnings. "I also need you to show me the money numbers for YouTube this month. I can only guess that it should be over 50 grand alone. September 6th, it was at 35,000 when you showed it to me on your phone. He reminded Eric of the contract's terms and YouTube's payment schedule, accusing him of withholding both the family's share and his own one-third. These leaked exchanges provided a window into the breakdown. Patrick framed himself as the defender of the Whitaker family's interests, fighting against greed and deception. He expressed outrage over the family's separation, suggesting it served financial motives rather than welfare. The messages validated earlier private conversations recalled by observers, confirming that disputes over money had simmered beneath the collaborative surface. Independent voices in the community, including livestream hosts like Totty on Skip, played a key role in bringing these details to light. Reading the texts aloud, they highlighted the human stakes. The Whitakers, already vulnerable, appeared caught between two men whose partnership had devolved into accusations of fraud, character assassination, and misappropriated funds. Questions mounted about the ultimate destination of donations. Had the money reached Betty, Larry, Timmy, and the others, or had it been diverted amid the power struggle over platforms and control? The controversy extended beyond texts. Reports emerged of strategic decisions to isolate certain family members, particularly Timmy, to maintain viewer interest and revenue streams. Content that once felt genuine and affectionate now faced reinterpretation as potentially exploitative. As public scrutiny intensified, the West Virginia State Police initiated an investigation into fraudulent schemes involving donations and merchandise intended for the family. Both Patrick Roark and Eric Carroll were named in official appeals for information from donors. The Whitaker family's long-standing peace in the holler shattered under the weight of external attention. Some members were removed from their longtime home by Adult Protective Services and placed in alternative care, citing safety and welfare concerns. The promised new home remained unbuilt. Instead of unity and improvement, the influx of money and fame delivered division, legal entanglements, and public distrust. Patrick later faced arrest on felony charges related to financial exploitation, while broader questions lingered about Eric's role in platform management and fund distribution. This saga illustrates the complex dynamics of modern digital advocacy. Compassionate viewers sent funds with pure intentions, only to witness a dispute that raised doubts about accountability. The three-way contract, meant to ensure fairness, instead became a flashpoint for conflict. Earnings estimates, exceeding $100,000 across platforms in some accounts, highlighted the scale of what was at stake. Patrick's repeated calls for transparency and payouts stood in stark contrast to the silence and alleged withholding described in the messages. As the story unfolded, it exposed deeper issues in how society engages with vulnerable families through social media. The Whitakers' visibility brought resources but also opportunism. Their disabilities and circumstances, once documented with empathy, risked being commodified for views and revenue. The leaked messages served as a critical piece of the narrative, humanizing the conflict while underscoring unresolved questions about responsibility. In the court of public opinion, the evidence pointed to systemic failures, insufficient oversight, concentrated platform control, and blurred lines between advocacy and profit. For the Whitaker family, the consequences were profound. Their story, rooted in resilience, became entangled in a money dispute that threatened to overshadow their humanity. The demand for justice, pay the Whitakers, echoed as both a call for restitution and a reminder of the need for ethical boundaries in storytelling. The events of September, captured in those heated texts, marked a turning point. What began as a promising alliance dissolved into accusations, investigations, and lasting damage to a family that had simply sought to maintain their quiet life in the holler. The full accounting of funds, intentions, and impacts would continue to unfold, but the human cost was already clear. The leaked messages between Patrick Roark and Eric Carroll did more than expose personal animosity. They illuminated a deeper fracture in the operation that had promised to uplift the Whitaker family. As these texts circulated through community live streams and online discussions, they fueled a growing narrative of betrayal. Patrick's words carried the weight of someone who believed he was witnessing the exploitation of a vulnerable family he had known locally. His accusations painted Eric as the central figure controlling the financial streams, particularly through YouTube, where earnings reportedly surged into the tens of thousands per month. In the days following the initial confrontation, Patrick's messages intensified. He demanded proof of payments and full disclosure of platform analytics. References to specific dates and figures, such as the $35,000 balance shown on a phone screen at an Airbnb, added credibility to his claims of first-hand knowledge. He accused Eric of strategic isolation tactics aimed at maximizing content value, particularly involving Timmy, whose engaging on-camera presence had become a viewer draw. According to Patrick, the goal was clear: keep the most compelling family members accessible for filming while sidelining others, all in service of sustaining revenue. Public storytellers amplified these revelations. Reading the exchanges aloud, they questioned why Eric reportedly maintained control over the primary monetized channels while disputes over the family's one-third share persisted. The contract, signed by Patrick, Eric, and representatives of the Whitaker family including Larry and Betty, explicitly called for equitable division. Yet enforcement appeared non-existent. No independent third party oversaw disbursements. This structural weakness allowed suspicions to flourish. Fans who had donated generously began demanding receipts, questioning whether their contributions had truly reached the holler or been absorbed into personal expenses and platform fees. The human toll on the Whitaker family became increasingly evident. For 70 years, the family had maintained a semblance of stability in their rural home despite significant challenges. The arrival of cameras and money disrupted that equilibrium. Reports surfaced of family members being separated, with some moved into alternative care arrangements under adult protective services. These interventions, while framed as protective, coincided with the height of the content creation boom and the emerging financial disputes. Larry Whitaker publicly expressed confusion and anger, stating his belief that substantial funds had been collected but not delivered as promised. The dream of a new, safer home, frequently highlighted in videos, remained unfulfilled, deepening the sense of disappointment. As the story gained traction, law enforcement responded. The West Virginia State Police Beckley Detachment issued a public appeal in September 2025, seeking information from anyone who had sent money or merchandise to Patrick Roark or Eric Carroll on behalf of the Whitakers. The investigation focused on potential fraudulent schemes, emphasizing donations intended for the family that may have been misdirected. This official scrutiny lent weight to the leaked messages. Patrick's threats to freeze assets and expose wrongdoing now existed within a formal legal context. Patrick maintained his position in subsequent interviews and statements. He asserted that he had received only limited personal earnings from his own Facebook page and had advocated aggressively for the family's share. He claimed to have spent his own money on improvements and support, producing some documentation of expenditures. In his view, Eric's control over YouTube and other platforms enabled unilateral decisions that sidelined both Patrick and the Whitakers. The absence of timely responses to his texts reinforced perceptions of evasion. Patrick repeatedly emphasized his local roots and long-term relationship with the area, contrasting it with Eric's outsider status. Eric Carroll, for his part, offered limited public responses during the escalating controversy. He disputed key allegations, noting that significant funds had flowed through accounts associated with Patrick and that full accounting required complete records from all parties. He maintained that the Whitaker family had received approximately one-third of revenue during certain periods, though disputes over expenses and receipts complicated the picture. Eric emphasized cooperation with authorities and denied systemic withholding. However, the lack of detailed public transparency from his side allowed Patrick's narrative to dominate early discussions. The financial scale added urgency to the debate. Estimates of combined earnings across platforms exceeded $100,000 in some reports, with YouTube alone representing a major portion due to its robust monetization. Bi-monthly payment schedules meant large sums could accumulate quickly. Patrick's reference to over $50,000 in a single month highlighted the potential stakes. Questions arose about taxes, platform fees, and operational costs, but the core issue remained: Had the Whitaker family's designated share been delivered consistently and in full? The failure to provide clear, verifiable proof fueled public skepticism. Beyond money, the ethical dimensions of the content itself came under examination. Videos featuring the Whitakers often blended documentation with entertainment. Patrick's Bing-Bing-style interactions with Timmy created memorable, shareable moments that boosted engagement. While these brought visibility, critics argued they risked reducing complex lives to spectacle. The family's disabilities and living conditions, once presented with empathy, were now viewed by some as tools for profit. This raised broader questions about consent, capacity, and the responsibilities of creators when working with vulnerable individuals. Community responses varied. Some supporters rallied behind Patrick, viewing him as the local advocate who had tried to hold the operation accountable. Others condemned both men, arguing that the entire endeavor had prioritized views and revenue over genuine help. Donations that once flowed freely slowed as trust eroded. Calls for refunds and independent audits grew louder. The hashtag-style demand "Pay the Whitakers" emerged as a rallying cry across platforms, symbolizing both specific restitution and a wider call for justice. The separation of family members carried profound emotional weight. Timmy, frequently central to content, became a focal point of concern. Efforts to return him to the original home were interpreted by some as viewer retention strategies rather than welfare decisions. The disruption of the family's long-standing living arrangement in the Hollow represented a loss of autonomy and continuity. For a family that had endured generations of challenges together, this fragmentation felt particularly cruel, especially if motivated by financial gain. Legal developments continued to unfold. Patrick Roark's eventual arrest in January 2026 on multiple felony counts, including financial exploitation of incapacitated persons and fraudulent schemes, marked a significant turning point. Held on a substantial bond, his case brought formal charges into the spotlight. The investigation encompassed allegations of using the family's image and circumstances for personal monetary benefit while withholding intended support. Eric Carroll remained under scrutiny but faced no immediate parallel charges in the initial wave, though the probe continued. These events cast a long shadow over the original documentary impulse. Mark Leiter's early work had aimed to foster understanding without exploitation. Subsequent content creators, attracted by the audience size, introduced commercial incentives that complicated the mission. The Whitaker story transformed from one of quiet resilience into a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of rapid digital fame. It highlighted the dangers when compassion meets unchecked monetization. As investigators gathered evidence, including the leaked texts, the public grappled with competing narratives. Patrick's heated language reflected genuine anger and a sense of betrayal, yet it also revealed the personal stakes he held in the operation. Eric's control of key platforms suggested greater financial leverage, but without full records, definitive conclusions remained elusive. The Whitaker family, meanwhile, navigated upheaval with limited public voice, their needs overshadowed by the spectacle of accusation and counter-accusation. The dispute underscored systemic vulnerabilities in social media-driven philanthropy. Without robust safeguards, independent oversight, clear contracts with enforcement mechanisms, and prioritized family welfare, good intentions could easily go astray. Viewers learned difficult lessons about verifying impact before donating. Creators faced new scrutiny regarding transparency and ethics. For the Whitakers, the consequences extended far beyond lost funds. Their privacy, stability, and family unity had been compromised in ways that would take years to repair, if repair was possible at all. In the broader Appalachian context, the saga reflected ongoing tensions between tradition and modernity, isolation and exposure. The Hollow that once offered shelter now stood as a symbol of contested narratives. The money that flowed in represented both opportunity and temptation. Patrick's messages, born in moments of intense conflict, captured the raw emotions at the heart of this unraveling. They served as a testament to broken trust and unfulfilled promises that extended well beyond any single contract. The arrest of Patrick Roark in January 2026 brought a measure of formal accountability to the Whitaker family saga, yet it did not fully resolve the questions that had multiplied since the leaked text messages first surfaced. Charged with 5 felony counts of financial exploitation of incapacitated persons, 5 counts of fraudulent schemes, and 1 count of fraudulent use of an access device, Roark was held on a $150,000 bond at Southern Regional Jail. The West Virginia State Police detailed allegations that he had used the family's disabilities and public profile to generate content and solicit donations, only to divert funds for personal gain. This development validated many of the concerns raised in Patrick's own earlier confrontations with Eric Carroll, even as it complicated the narrative of who bore primary responsibility. Eric Carroll, while not charged in the same initial action, remained a figure of scrutiny. The investigation continued to examine the flow of money across all platforms. Public records and statements from authorities emphasized the need for complete donor information to trace merchandise and cash intended for the Whitakers. The three-way contract that once symbolized partnership now stood as evidence in a larger probe, its terms dissected for compliance or violation. Patrick had repeatedly insisted on the family receiving their full 1/3 share, citing specific YouTube earnings and demanding transparency. The failure of that system to deliver consistent results left lasting damage, regardless of individual intent. For the Whitaker family, the consequences extended far beyond financial loss. Members including Ray, Lorraine, and Timmy were removed from the family home by Adult Protective Services amid concerns for their safety and well-being. Placed in alternative care settings, they experienced a profound disruption to the 70-year continuity of life in the holler. Betty and Larry expressed frustration in limited public comments, with Larry indicating his belief that collected funds had not reached them as promised. The modest stability they had maintained despite significant challenges gave way to external interventions and uncertainty. The new home that had been a central promise of the content creation era remained an unfulfilled vision, replaced instead by legal proceedings and public debate. The broader public reaction revealed deep divisions. Supporters of the family demanded full restitution, organizing under the banner, "Pay the Whitakers." Online communities shared timelines, analyzed payment records where available, and called for independent audits. Many donors who had given out of genuine compassion felt betrayed by the apparent mismanagement. The playful bing-bing moments that once defined Patrick's videos with Timmy were re-examined through a lens of potential exploitation. What had appeared as light-hearted engagement now raised questions about consent and the ethics of profiting from vulnerability in the digital age. Documentary reflections on the case highlighted systemic issues in social media philanthropy. The Whitaker story followed a familiar pattern. Initial empathy-driven visibility through Mark Leiter's work, followed by rapid commercialization. Platforms rewarded engagement, creating incentives for dramatic or emotionally charged content. Without strong safeguards, the line between advocacy and self-interest blurred. The concentration of platform control in Eric's hands, as alleged by Patrick, exemplified how power imbalances could undermine collective goals. Similarly, Patrick's aggressive pursuit of funds and public positioning illustrated the personal stakes that could cloud judgment. Legal experts noted the challenges in such cases. Proving intent, tracing commingled funds, and accounting for taxes, fees, and legitimate expenses required extensive documentation. The leaked messages provided emotional context but required corroboration through financial records. Patrick's arrest focused attention on his role, yet the full picture of revenue distribution across multiple platforms remained incomplete. Calls for Eric to release comprehensive accounting grew louder, emphasizing the moral imperative to prioritize the family's needs over ongoing disputes. The saga carried important lessons for content creators, platforms, and audiences alike. Creators working with vulnerable populations bear heightened responsibility to ensure transparency and genuine benefit. Contracts must include independent oversight, regular verifiable payouts, and clear exit strategies. Social media companies could implement better verification for fundraising appeals tied to real individuals. For viewers, the events served as a reminder to research impact before donating, seeking verified charities or direct, transparent channels rather than intermediary appeals. In the Appalachian context, the Whitaker case resonated with long-standing themes of external interest in rural communities. For generations, the family had lived with limited outside interference. The influx of cameras and money brought both attention and disruption. Neighbors reported increased traffic and intrusions, prompting protective measures. The family's privacy, already compromised by fame, eroded further amid the scandal. Their story became a cautionary example of how well-meaning visibility can inadvertently expose vulnerable people to exploitation. As months passed, public interest shifted toward long-term outcomes. What support structures would replace the failed content-driven model? Could the family regain stability and autonomy? Some advocates pushed for community-led initiatives that respected the Whitakers' dignity without commodifying their lives. Others focused on legal restitution, hoping recovered funds could provide tangible improvements. The separation of family members remained a painful reality, underscoring the human cost when financial motives overshadow care. Patrick Roark maintained aspects of his defense even after arrest, pointing to his local connections and earlier efforts to secure the family's share. He had spent personal money on improvements, he claimed, and fought against what he saw as Eric's control. The heated language in the leaked text reflected real-time anger rather than calculated deceit, according to supporters. Yet the charges against him suggested authorities found sufficient evidence of exploitation to proceed. The court process would ultimately test these competing accounts through evidence and testimony. Eric Carroll's continued cooperation with investigators, as reported, offered some path toward resolution. His statements emphasized that portions of revenue had reached the family and that accounting complexities arose from shared responsibilities. The absence of detailed public ledgers, however, left room for doubt. Full transparency from all parties remained essential for public trust and meaningful restitution. The Whitaker family's resilience endured beneath the controversy. Their story began long before cameras arrived, as one of generational bonds forged in hardship. The fame that followed brought resources but also profound challenges. Betty's strength, Larry's directness, Timmy's personality, and the quiet endurance of the others represented the core humanity that first captured attention. In the aftermath, their needs remained simple: safety, stability, medical support, and the dignity of self-determination. The demand to pay the Whitakers evolved from a specific call regarding disputed funds into a broader principle. It represented the expectation that compassion should translate into real help, not become fuel for personal gain. In an era where any individual or family can achieve sudden visibility, the safeguards against exploitation must evolve alongside the technology that enables it. Ultimately, the Whitaker saga serves as a mirror to society's relationship with vulnerability and fame. It reveals how quickly empathy can be monetized and how easily trust can erode when money enters the equation. The leaked messages that ignited widespread discussion captured raw emotions at a breaking point. Patrick's fight for what he believed was right, set against a backdrop of broken promises and family separation. The full truth continues emerging through legal channels, financial reviews, and personal testimonies. As the Holler of Odds settles into a new chapter, the lessons remain relevant far beyond West Virginia. Respect for human dignity must guide any effort to tell or support difficult stories. For the Whitakers, recovery will take time, community support, and careful stewardship of any remaining resources. Their 70 years of peace may have been disrupted, but their story continues to remind us of the importance of accountability, transparency, and genuine care in an increasingly connected world. The cameras may have moved on, but the human impact lingers. True resolution will come not from viral moments or heated exchanges, but from quiet, sustained efforts that place the family's well-being above all else. In that spirit, the call endures. Ensure the help reaches those it was meant for, and honor the lives behind the headlines.